Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm DM Emrys, your storyteller for all things dark and twisted in the Disney universe. Today, we're diving into the origin story of one of Disney's most iconic villains, Cruella De Vil. This tale is straight out of Serena Valentino's book Evil Thing. Spoiler alert. We'll be going through major plot points, so if you haven't read the book yet, be warned. Now, let's uncover the truth behind the fur-obsessed fashionista and see how she became the villain we all know. Our story begins in the lavish world of Belgrave Square, where young Cruella De Vil is born into wealth and privilege. Her home is a grand mansion filled with luxurious items, opulent decor, and an air of superiority that permeates every room. But beneath the glamour, Cruella grows up in a household where emotions are stifled, and the servants are mere, non-people, as she calls them, ghosts who drift through her life unnoticed. This early environment sets the stage for Cruella's disconnection from the world around her, where material wealth is valued over human connections. Cruella's world revolves around her mother, a woman who exudes glamour and sophistication. Every day, Cruella eagerly awaits the hour she spends with her in the morning room, a sacred time where her mother's attention is solely on her. This time together fuels Cruella's admiration and idolization, as she yearns to be just like her mother, perfect, poised, and always in control. However, this idolization comes at a cost, as Cruella begins to measure her self-worth against her mother's impossible standards. Her mother's coldness and emotional distance further alienate Cruella from the warmth and love she craves, pushing her deeper into a world where appearances are everything. Among the few fond memories Cruella holds dear is the gift she receives from her father, a pair of jade earrings. These earrings come with a story of pirate's treasure, adding an air of mystery to the gift. Initially, Cruella is unimpressed, viewing the earrings as just another possession in her vast collection of luxuries. But as she grows older, the earrings become a cherished reminder of her father, linking her to the man who, despite being emotionally distant, was one of the few constants in her life. The earrings symbolize the love and attention she rarely received from her mother, making them one of the few sentimental items Cruella values. As Cruella transitions from childhood to adolescence, tragedy strikes with the sudden illness and death of her father. This loss devastates Cruella, not just because of the void it leaves in her life, but also because of the guilt her mother cruelly places on her. When her mother arrives too late to say goodbye, she blames Cruella for her father's death, accusing her of keeping him to herself. This accusation, unfair and unfounded, shatters Cruella's already fragile sense of self. Her father's death marks the beginning of her emotional descent, as she begins to internalize the belief that she is somehow unworthy of love and destined to be alone. After her father's death, Cruella is shocked to learn that she has inherited the entire family fortune, while her mother is left with only a yearly allowance. This unexpected turn of events only deepens the rift between mother and daughter. Feeling betrayed and abandoned, Cruella watches in despair as her mother decides to leave on a trip around the world, not even bothering to say goodbye to her daughter. This departure is a devastating blow to Cruella, who had always sought her mother's approval and affection. Now, she is left alone in the grand mansion, burdened with the responsibilities of managing the estate and grappling with the realization that her mother never truly loved her. Left alone in the mansion, Cruella is forced to take on the role of lady of the house. This new responsibility is overwhelming, but she finds solace in her childhood friend, Anita, who remains a steadfast companion. Anita provides the emotional support that Cruella desperately needs, helping her navigate the complexities of her new life. Together, they prepare for their future at finishing school, an endeavor that is both exciting and daunting. Anita's presence is a source of comfort, but even her friendship cannot fill the void left by Cruella's mother. As Cruella struggles to find her place in a world that suddenly feels much larger and lonelier, she clings to the hope that finishing school will bring her the happiness and fulfillment she craves. At finishing school, Cruella quickly rises to the top of her class, excelling in all her studies. However, she soon realizes that the other girls are more interested in securing wealthy husbands than in pursuing their own dreams. This realization is a turning point for Cruella, who begins to see the world around her in a new light. She becomes increasingly disillusioned with the idea of conforming to societal expectations, and her desire for independence and a life free from the constraints of marriage and social norms grows stronger. This desire is further fueled by her mother's relentless pressure to marry well, a pressure that Cruella resents deeply. As she navigates the complexities of school life, Cruella's resolve to forge her own path becomes more resolute, setting the stage for the choices she will make later in life. Birthdays, once a time of joy and celebration, become a source of disappointment for Cruella. As she reaches adulthood, she eagerly anticipates a visit from her mother, hoping that this year will be different. But her hopes are dashed when she receives only a few impersonal gifts and a note. The absence of her mother on such an important day is a painful reminder of her mother's indifference. Cruella spends the evening with Anita and Miss Prickett, her governess, trying to mask her disappointment. But the sting of her mother's absence lingers, deepening the emotional wounds that have plagued her for years. This birthday marks another step in Cruella's journey toward bitterness and resentment, as she comes to accept that her mother will never be the loving parent she desperately wanted. The holidays bring a brief glimmer of hope as Cruella's mother returns home for Christmas. However, any hope of reconciliation is quickly dashed when her mother remains cold and distant, refusing to join in the festivities. This cold reception is a crushing blow to Cruella, who had hoped that the holiday season would bring them closer together. Instead, it only solidifies the growing rift between them. The Christmas celebrations, which should have been a time of joy and togetherness, become a painful reminder of the emotional distance that now separates them. Cruella's heart hardens further as she realizes that her mother's love is something she will never have. This realization pushes her further down the path of isolation and emotional detachment. As Cruella grows more independent, the once strong bond between her and Anita begins to strain under the weight of societal expectations and personal ambition. Cruella's mother starts pressuring her into a marriage with a wealthy suitor, a prospect that Cruella finds increasingly unappealing. Anita, who has always been a voice of reason and support, now finds herself at odds with Cruella's growing rebelliousness and desire for autonomy. Despite their close bond, Cruella begins to feel increasingly isolated, believing that even Anita cannot fully understand the depths of her frustrations and desires. This growing tension marks the beginning of the end of their friendship, as Cruella's ambitions and insecurities drive a wedge between them. Cruella's life takes a dramatic turn when she meets Jack, a charming and wealthy American who quickly becomes the center of her world. Jack, with his easy charm and devil-may-care attitude, sweeps Cruella off her feet, offering her the glamorous life she has always dreamed of. They marry, and Jack takes the De Vil name, solidifying their union and fulfilling Cruella's desire for independence and a life of luxury. Together, they indulge in a lavish lifestyle, filled with extravagant parties, expensive clothes, and a seemingly endless supply of wealth. But even as Cruella enjoys the trappings of her new life, there is a growing sense of emptiness within her. Despite Jack's love and attention, Cruella remains haunted by her unresolved feelings toward Anita and her mother, and the lingering sense that something is missing from her life. Just as Cruella seems to have everything she ever wanted, tragedy strikes again with the mysterious death of Jack in a fire. The circumstances surrounding his death are suspicious, and Cruella is devastated, refusing to believe that he is truly gone. Her grief overwhelms her, and she retreats into isolation, locking herself away in her childhood home. The mansion, once a place of glamour and opulence, now becomes a prison for Cruella, filled with memories of a life that was never truly hers. Clinging to the hope that Jack might still be alive, Cruella's mental state begins to deteriorate, as she becomes consumed by her grief and the growing realization that she is utterly alone. As Cruella grapples with her grief, she undergoes a physical transformation that reflects the emotional turmoil within her. Her once raven hair turns half white, a stark contrast that symbolizes the duality of her nature. This transformation is both shocking and empowering for Cruella, as she begins to embrace the darker aspects of her personality. She adopts a more severe and ruthless persona, shedding the last remnants of the girl who once sought her mother's approval. With her new look comes a new outlook on life, one that is driven by a desire for revenge and a determination to never be vulnerable again. This transformation marks the final step in Cruella's journey from a troubled young woman to the ruthless villain we all know. The final confrontation between Cruella and her mother takes place over a tense dinner, where years of resentment and unspoken anger finally come to a head. Cruella, no longer willing to play the role of the dutiful daughter, lashes out at her mother, expressing all the pain and betrayal she has felt over the years. Her mother, as cold and unfeeling as ever, responds with indifference, dismissing Cruella's feelings as childish and irrelevant. This dinner marks the final severing of ties between mother and daughter, as Cruella realizes that the woman she once idolized is nothing more than a hollow shell. With this realization, Cruella is finally free from her mother's influence, but the cost of this freedom is her last remaining connection to her past. With nothing left for her in London, Cruella decides to leave the city and relocate to De Vil Hall, a desolate estate that she quickly renames Hell Hall. The move represents a fresh start for Cruella, but it also symbolizes her complete descent into darkness. Hell Hall, with its decaying walls and eerie atmosphere, becomes a reflection of Cruella's inner turmoil and despair. Here, she fully embraces her grief and loneliness, sinking deeper into bitterness and resentment. The once glamorous socialite is now a recluse, living in a mansion that is as broken and damaged as she feels. Hell Hall becomes both her sanctuary and her prison, as Cruella isolates herself from the world, nursing her growing hatred and desire for revenge. As the loneliness of Hell Hall begins to take its toll, Cruella makes a desperate attempt to reconnect with her old friend Anita, hoping to rekindle the friendship that once brought her comfort. She arranges a meeting, and for a brief moment, there is a glimmer of hope that things might go back to the way they were. But the encounter only deepens Cruella's resentment, as she becomes envious of Anita's happy and simple life. Anita, now married and content, represents everything that Cruella has lost, and the stark contrast between their lives is too much for Cruella to bear. This meeting solidifies Cruella's feelings of isolation and bitterness, as she realizes that the life she once knew is gone forever, and there is no going back. Cruella's obsession with fur and her desire to reclaim her lost sense of power take a dark turn when she learns that Perdita, Anita's beloved Dalmatian, is pregnant. The idea of a fur coat made from Dalmatian puppies becomes an obsession, and Cruella begins to plot how she can acquire the puppies for herself. The thought of wearing a coat made from their soft, spotted fur fills her with a sense of excitement and anticipation. For Cruella, the puppies represent more than just a fashion statement. They are a means to regain the control and power she has lost. This obsession marks the beginning of her descent into true villainy, as she becomes consumed by her desire to possess the puppies at any cost. As Cruella's plans to acquire the puppies begin to take shape, she faces her ultimate betrayal. Anita and Roger, who had once been her closest friends, refuse to sell the puppies to her, despite her generous offers. Enraged by their refusal and feeling utterly betrayed, Cruella vows revenge, setting in motion the events that will lead to her infamous scheme to steal the Dalmatian puppies. This betrayal is the final straw for Cruella, pushing her over the edge and solidifying her transformation into the ruthless villain she has become. Her once glamorous life is now consumed by a single, obsessive desire: to make a fur coat from the Dalmatian puppies, no matter the cost. As Cruella's plan to steal the Dalmatian puppies unfolds, she becomes increasingly unhinged. The once composed and glamorous woman is now driven by a single, obsessive desire that blinds her to everything else. Her descent into madness is marked by erratic behavior, wild outbursts, and a complete disregard for the lives of others. Cruella's world has narrowed to a single focus: the creation of her Dalmatian fur coat. In her quest for revenge, she loses everything that once made her who she was: her friends, her home, and even her sanity. The final image of Cruella is that of a woman completely consumed by her own darkness, her once glamorous life reduced to a twisted, vengeful pursuit. Cruella de Vil's story is a tragic tale of loss, obsession, and the dangers of unchecked ambition. From a lonely child to a glamorous socialite, and finally to a ruthless villain, Cruella's journey is a stark reminder that even the most glamorous lives can hide the darkest secrets. Her descent into madness is both a cautionary tale and a reflection of the consequences of a life built on appearances and material wealth. Cruella's story serves as a reminder that true happiness cannot be found in wealth or power, but in the connections we make with others and the love we give and receive. As we reflect on Cruella's life, we are reminded that even the most iconic villains have a story worth telling. A story that is often filled with pain, loss, and the longing for something more. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Cruella's backstory, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories from the darker side of Disney. Let me know in the comments which villain's story you'd like to hear next.